a little while or something. Oh, no, I think it's working. Yeah. Hold on. Welcome, everyone. If you're on the screen, oh, hold on. It says I'm having trouble. Okay, well, I messed up the Instagram one. Sorry. Anyway, welcome everyone. If you're on, okay, people are on, I believe on YouTube and Facebook, and I will just repost some of the clips for Instagram since I didn't quite get that right. I'm new to StreamYard. Anyway, what an amazing day. We have Jimmy Blanchette, who's going to share his recent findings. And oh, wow, there's so many people from all over. Hi, guys. Bangkok, Thailand. Oh, wow. Hi. Hi from Sweden, Arizona. Hi, guys. Hi, Nicole. I love your name, Kat and Jack. That's great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So excited. I'm so excited to talk to Jimmy. I'm sure you guys are too. He's always, uncovering these amazing things. So what do you want to share with us, Jimmy? And first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for what you're doing to help humanity. We just all really appreciate it. I'm speaking for everyone now because we do. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Sarah. It's a pleasure as always. I'm very passionate about sharing this information because at the end of the day, this information needs to be shared with the world, really. And we have a lot of material to go through today. It's going to be fascinating. And again, thank you again for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. So what is what is this basically, like, what did you want to find out, or what did you find out exactly?
Well, the main theme of this presentation, we have about 40 slides to go through, and I think 3 video clips. And it's really the theme, and I can show it on the screen here. So let me just, can you see the slide? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, so really the main theme is that throughout history, non-human intelligences have clearly encoded the keys to the universe in their manifestations. When we talk about manifestations, it can be in the form of sightings, in the sky, through ships inside manifesting in the sky. And also, it can be ancient sacred sites, whether it is in their constructions or in their location on the Earth grid. And it's very, very clear that they are passing on very fundamental knowledge about our universe that I think it's time now for humanity to rediscover. This is very ancient sacred knowledge. And it can be very transformative because my belief is that once we understand and start converting this knowledge into technology, this technology will have the capability of transforming the world, transforming humanity, whether it is through anti-gravity, free energy, tapping in the energy of the Earth grid, and so on. So, and it's mathematical. I mean, it's all demonstrable mathematically, and I have done all the math on this. It's part of my work. And, really my work when I started as an experiencer was a bit more focused on sightings and manifestations and communication with non-human intelligences. And for those who haven't seen it, our first interview, Sarah, I mean, we covered that in pretty great detail, right? How it all started and unfolded. Now my work is a bit more focused onto that information, right? How to decode and turn that into mathematics, right? And it's because it's all beautiful. And it's simple too. That's the beauty of it. It's very simple at the end of the day because we expect that creation and source will do things in a way that's very simple and elegant, right? Elegance and simplicity. And that's what we see. At the end of the day, it's extremely simple, but it's very powerful. And, once we're ready, we can go through this. I have a full presentation about it.
Awesome. I'm really excited. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll start with this little video here. And what we're going to see in this video is that most of the very known or renowned ancient sacred sites are perfectly aligned around the globe on a line, like an equator. This alignment is known, actually. It's not new. It's been known for a few years now. But what's not known is why, right? And what's encoded behind this. And so that's part of the discoveries and the work I've done over the last few weeks. A lot of it is really recent material. So I have a little promotional video that I'd like to present to show this alignment. So let me just start the video, and you're probably going to have to allow it on your side, Sarah, for it to.
Okay.
You can hear the sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's incredible. Wait, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I got it. No,
Now
I got
I
it.
can hear
I
you.
got it. I had muted myself during the video. Sorry. Yeah, so I plotted all these sites. I have all the coordinates of these sites, which are is just stunningly all aligned, right? Um, and what we'll see here, what I want to demonstrate is that the physics of black holes and microsingularity is encoded in the location of these ancient sacred sites around the world at a very high degree of accuracy. And uh, and I believe I mean, you've mentioned in our last interview that some of your clients talks about black holes, right? They're using that as portals or gateways, correct? So this is encoded in the mathematics. So what is a black hole or what is a microsingularity? To explain briefly in simple terms, a microsingularity in physics refers to an extremely small black hole or region of space-time where the curvature becomes infinite, just like a singularity found in the center of the big black hole we see in space, for instance. And the key part is here is that it is theorized, and many physicists today theorize that any point in time and space, any dimension and any density can be accessed through microsingularity wormholes. And that is the key here. The concept has obviously very intriguing implications, and also it's connected to quantum gravity. So it's pretty profound in terms of the implication of this physics that's encoded in this. What we saw in the video here is this alignment, and we see it represented by the little red band here, right? This alignment forms like an equator, if you will, around the world. And if we take, for instance, Nazca and Giza as point, we realize that this alignment, essentially that what we could say the old North Pole would be located here in northwest Canada or southeast of Alaska, right? So that will be the North Pole corresponding to this alignment, that equator that existed thousands of years ago. So these are all the sites that we saw in a video that are aligned. I have the coordinates that are mentioned here. And so what I did here, I calculated the distance between each of these sites and that old North Pole, if you will, that theoretical old North Pole. Presumably before there was some kind of pole shift or something, right? Because now we have a different North Pole, obviously. And what we realize is that the average distance of these sites is very close to 5,400 nautical miles. The average is 5,398, and the median is 5,400. And it makes sense because if you're located really at the center of that equator, the distance to the North Pole will be 5,400 exactly, right? That's mathematical. And I use the nautical miles. The reason why I use this unit, I think I described that in our previous interview, is that this measurement system is compatible with geometry, right? There are 360 degrees in a circle, 60 minutes of arc per degree, so there are 21,600 minutes of arc in a circle, essentially around a circle. And that measurement system, the nautical miles, matches that exactly. There are 21,600 nautical miles to circle the globe around the Earth, right? So it's in harmony with geometry. All the universe is based on geometry. So we must use a unit of distance and time that are compatible with geometry. And when we do that, there's an entire world that opens up. We see new things that we could not see before. And that's one of the key here. So I did some research and used that equation. I won't go too much into mathematics, but it's very simple to see. I used this equation, and this equation here, which was developed by Carl Schwarzschild in the early 1900s, is the equation to calculate the diameter of black holes. And the astrophysicists today, even nowadays, they use that equation to calculate the size of black holes in space, right? They look at the size, and they actually calculate the mass of the black hole, and they are able to calculate the diameter of it, right? So that's a very simple equation, but it's connected to the property of the black holes. I did some adjustment to the equation to match the geometric harmonics units that we're using. And what we see here, what I plotted in this graph, is the energy of the black hole versus its surface area. And, we can imagine a black hole as being a sphere, right? A spherical thing. So interestingly, when we hit this point here, when we hit this line in red, the zero line is that essentially there's, at that energy, 5,391, there's no more difference between the energy and the surface area. Essentially, the energy of the black hole equals its surface area. So it's a very unique point of energy. Interestingly, we see this data point matches very nicely the average distance we see here, 5,398. That's the connection here. So on the Earth grid, it appears that these sites were located very strategically on the Earth grid to match that energy, right? To tell us about it. So I did further calculation, and that's where things really get interesting. So when we input this, if we round it to 5,400, and we answer that distance energy, if you will, into the Schwarzschild equation, we end up with, as I mentioned, a black hole that has a surface area equal to the energy, which is fascinating in itself. But also in green, what we see here is that the diameter of the black hole matches exactly the Earth gravity acceleration. So the Earth gravity acceleration is really, if we let like an apple fall, for instance, and let it fall on the ground, right? The apple with the gravity of the Earth will accelerate, right? There's a number attached to this. This is the power, the strength, if you will, the force of the gravity that's pulling, right? The gravity. Well, what I'm showing here is that at this harmonic, at this figure, 5,400 in terms of energy, the black hole diameter matches exactly the Earth gravity acceleration. So this is not an accident. We see, for instance, that, in my opinion, right, these sites have these massive stones that are extremely large that we cannot explain today how these civilizations thousands of years ago may have moved these massive stones, to these locations. Some of these stones are on top of mountains, as we can see here in Ollantaytambo in Peru. And so it's very clear that this physics or this mathematics seems to be connected to the Earth gravity acceleration. So in other words, use this very property to create anti-gravity and create levitation, right? So that seems to be what's encoded there. And this number is at a very high degree of accuracy. The match with the gravity acceleration is 99.95% match. Cannot be an accident. The other thing we see in this on the top right here is that the volume of the black hole, the radius, and the surface area over the volume, it's all matching these harmonics of creation that we've covered in our previous interview, right? The golden ratio, harmonic 432 and harmonic 144. These are the building block of creation. And I'm showing it here on the screen, is that with these three harmonics, as we saw in our first interview, we can recreate an entire physics. I found that everything is connected to these. These are these harmonics that physical reality drives everything, from the speed of light to everything pretty much. And this equation here that I came up with a couple of years ago shows that the product of these three harmonics of creation equals to 1, which is the representation of source of creation, right? So it's all connected to this. So very clearly, the location of these sites in terms of physics, using the formula that we use in physics today, matches these harmonics and matches the Earth gravity acceleration. So I think it's a very important piece of information to understand why they have built these sites at these locations. They're all perfectly aligned to. And we see here another example, a Sacsayhuaman in Peru. The size of these blocks, how they've constructed this, is just beyond any imagination. This is absolutely stunning. I presented a lot of these results in more details to Robert and his team and his group. So on my YouTube channel, you can find more details about the mathematics involved behind this. But for those interested, feel free to go to my YouTube channel. You will see the details of this mathematics. Now, there's something else that's really fascinating about this. If we saw on the map here, right, the old North Pole that I was talking about here will be located here in Northwest Canada. Okay, if we draw a line between this old North Pole of the old equator to the current North Pole, we get this yellow line here on top. And if we create a perfect triangle here, we end up at that location at the bottom here, which is a few miles away from where I live, believe it or not. And it's located in Groom Creek, Arizona, near Prescott, Arizona. Now, one thing that's very special about this location, or this triangle that's formed, this angle of 24 degrees here, is very special, because if we take 24 degrees and we convert that into a harmonic number, we multiply by 60, we get exactly harmonic 144. So these two corners of this triangle matches harmonic 144. There's something very special about this. But furthermore, in the late 50s, and I'm sure you've heard of that story, Stranger at the Pentagon. It is alleged that there was a Venusian that lived among us for a few years, during 3 years in the late 50s. And Venusians was at the Pentagon, had many interactions with the government, and communicated a lot of information and messages. And incredibly, Valiantor is the name of that Venusian, communicated information about an underground base, a Lemurian underground complex being built in Groom Creek at that exact location of that triangle that I'm talking about. So let me play the audio. I extracted the, and I don't know if I can play it here. I extracted the audio from the audio book. So let me play. Okay, so what you're going to hear is from Valiantor, from this Venusian. So listen very carefully to what he says, but especially towards the end. It's about 30 seconds. And towards the end, he talks about this very specific location. So here
The
it is.
safest places where the Lemurians are setting up refugee camps right now are Phoenix, Flagstaff, Prescott, and Albuquerque. She says they are building an underground complex at Groom Creek near Prescott, Arizona. The safest places were...
Whoops. So fascinating, right? So how could this be a coincidence? So I don't think it's an accident, obviously. So very specifically, this information was communicated in the 50s. And now when we look at this mathematics, we go back to the slide, that corner of that triangle corresponding to harmonic 144 is exactly at Groom Creek, mentioned in the message. So believe it or not, it's a few miles away from where I live. So I was there. I went there a few days ago, actually, and you see me here. And this place is amazing. There are these massive stones, very intriguing rock formation there that stands out of nothing. And I'm exploring, and with other people to see if we can find some hieroglyphs or signs of an ancient civilizations that may have been located there, thousands of years ago.
The safest.
Okay, another thing I wanted to cover is that in this alignment that all these sites are located, obviously and unsurprisingly, the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Giza complex has a very, very special property. And I'm going to talk about pi, because this mathematical constant pi seems to be encoded everywhere in Egypt, in the Great Pyramid, and also its location. And so if you recall, the symbol pi is encoded everywhere around the world, as a symbol for portals. We see it from Stonehenge to the Torii Gate in Japan, the Temple of Apollo, Chichen Itza. I mean, it's everywhere. It's been in our face all along, but there's a reason for it. And I showed last time that if we calculate the volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza, not the current pyramid, but the old pyramid before the casing stones were taken off, right? Because we know there was a casing stone made of perfect white limestone that were covering the Great Pyramid. So the pyramid was much more perfect before, but it was also taller. It was bigger because of these casing stones. If we enter these dimensions of the old pyramid before it was stripped off of this casing stone, and we enter that into a program here, and we calculate its volume energy, and we enter that energy again into the equation, the Schwarzschild metric that I talked about, to calculate the size of black hole, we end up with a black hole diameter in yellow here that matches exactly the constant pi at 99.99%. So the volume energy of the Great Pyramid itself clearly suggests that there's a black hole, a macro singularity or portal that's located right in it, right? The energy matches that at such an accuracy, hard to believe it's an accident. Moreover, what I recently found a few days ago, if we take again that energy that we saw earlier, that 5400 number, well, I'm using the 5391 just to be more precise, and we convert that energy into a frequency, right? There's a Planck, the Max Planck is discovered all these relationship about between energy and electromagnetic wave, right? It's all the physics is based on a lot on Planck's. So if we take that Planck's equation and we enter that energy to calculate the frequency, we get a frequency that matches pi again at 99.8%. So not only the volume energy of the Great Pyramid of Giza produce a mini black hole diameter equivalent to constant pi, but the frequency matching its location on the Earth grid matches the constant pi as well. And now I'm showing a recent discovery I made literally a few days ago. This is very, very recent material. Right, if we look here on this map, so on the upper corner on the right side, it's the location of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We have the red line here, which is the prime meridian, right, the longitude 0. And we got the equator, the current equator. That square, if we calculate the surface area of that square using these dimensions, gives us 3.14 nautical miles squared, millions of nautical miles squared, in which matches the constant pi again, amazingly at a very high degree of accuracy, at 99.95% of accuracy. So it's like a giant sign that has been put in our face to, to say, hey, pay attention to this. And again, this constant pi, once we integrate that as a surface of a sphere, the surface area of a sphere, gives us a mini black hole that is based on the square root of the golden ratio. Right? All this mathematics works so perfectly. And it's at such a high degree of accuracy, it is improbable, I will say impossible, for this to be an accident. This is all matching so perfectly. Now, the other thing that I came to mind a few days ago is this distance energy, this 5400, right, that has been, all these sites are located against the old North Pole at that distance, that number seems to be very important. I said, okay, let's look on our current map on Google Earth if we can find something special about that distance. So if we go from our current North Pole down the prime meridian, right, towards the equator, when we hit the equator, which is exactly that distance, 5,400 nautical miles, I zoomed in on with Google Earth and we see something sticking out of the ocean here. And I have a zoom picture. So my bet will be that if we will have an exploration, people with to go with a boat to explore and go to see what's underneath the ocean here, there may be remnants of an ancient civilization, because it's exactly located where we will expect it to be based on this mathematics. All right, another thing that is significant. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the intelligence has encoded the keys to the universe in their manifestations and location of their ancient sacred sites and so on. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Rendlesham Forest incident. So most people will know this incident, right? It's probably the second most or the most known UFO incident in the history, next to Roswell. And it's called the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident. And it's in 1980 that a UFO landed in Rendlesham Forest, which was right next to Bentwaters Air Force Base, which is alleged to have contained the largest depot of nuclear weapons in the world at the time during the Cold War. So probably not an accident why the UFO landed right next to this Air Force Base. And obviously the military saw that and they deployed people to go investigate. And one of the first person on site that was deployed from the military to investigate was Jim Penniston. He's very known in the field of ufology. And Jim Penniston came into contact with this extraterrestrial craft and physically touched the craft, this triangular craft that was in the forest, landed there, and instantly was downloaded with tremendous amount of binary code, just ones and zeros, right? And so he wrote this binary code in his notebook when he got home. And this binary code was translated decades later, I think like 30 years later. And this binary code contains amazing information. And I encourage everyone to read the book of Jim Penniston and Gary Osborne. Gary is a good friend of mine, and I'm in contact with Gary. And he's has done tremendous discoveries in decoding what was behind this code. So I encourage everyone to read that book. But what we see here is actually the message that was decoded from this intelligence. So exploration of humanity, and then continuous for planetary advancement. And then there's a set of 7 coordinates that were given, latitude, very precise latitude and longitude. And I'm going to show the map of these coordinates in a second. And then it says eyes of your eyes, the origin of the message. I will show you where it is. In the origin year, and look at this, and this is fascinating. The origin year is 8100. So it is alleged that this craft or this extraterrestrial were coming from the future, from the year 8100 to communicate this information to humanity. So we see here the message a bit zoomed in. Again, it's the same message. And what we see here is the map of these 7 geographical locations around the world So we see where the UFO was in Rendlesham Forest in the UK. The Temple of Apollo in Greece was one of the coordinates. The Great Pyramid of Giza was another one, and this one is very special. I'm going to talk to it in a second. Mount Tyson in China. Sedona, right where the vortex is, there's a known vortex in Sedona. It's really close, so that there's essentially a coordinate there. Cana'a Pyramid in Central America, and the Nazca Plain in Peru. These are the 7 coordinates that were communicated. So I found out, and this is very fresh material, days ago, that this latitude that was given about, which is right next to the Great Pyramid of Giza, this latitude 29.9778836 was really special and encoded a fundamental constant in physics. And it encodes the fine structure constant. And again, this is a demonstration on how the intelligence is communicating the keys to the universe. I'm going to show the details of it in a second. And for those who don't know, the fine structure constant, really, it's the symbol is alpha, is responsible for keeping the universe in balance, literally. And its origin remains a mystery. So in physics, they still cannot explain where that constant is coming from. And this fundamental constant characterizes the strength of all the electromagnetic interactions in the universe. It's really, really important. So everything, all the exchange of light and photons, the transition of energy in the atoms are regulated by this constant, which is a mystery. The physicists need to use this constant for the universe to work, literally. So I discovered a few days ago the solution to this enigma, if you will, which is buried in this latitude that was given by this extraterrestrial craft in 1980. So when we take so what we see, the alpha here is the sign for the fine structure constant. So when we take the side length of a tetrahedron here within a Merkaba, within a Euclidean cube, which has coordinate ±1. Again, the ±1 is not an accident, right? Everything in the universe is a division from source creation, and the source creation is represented by the number 1, right? So that cube represents source, if you will. And if we take the side length of this tetrahedron, we convert that into a circumference of a circle. And I have a slide here that shows the circle, right? So we convert that length into a circumference of a circle per degrees. And we multiply that by the coordinates given by this extraterrestrial craft, 29.9778836, which is right next to the Great Pyramid of Giza. We get exactly the fine structure constant reciprocal at 99.9998% of accuracy. So they have really clearly, this craft was encoding the keys to the universe in this coordinate right next to the Great Pyramid of Giza. This led me to find a solution actually now in our current physics as to why that is and where is this fine structure constant is coming from. And I'm going to talk about in a few minutes about the primordial fractalization, which is the division of the source creation, right, that creates our universe. I'm going to go in more detail, but essentially, again, if we take the side length of this tetrahedron here, which is equivalent to 2 times the Planck length. The Planck length is the smallest oscillation of energy that can exist at the quantum scale, right? This is based on quantum physics. And we make that 2 Planck length, that side length, as the diameter of the circle that we see here, right? This is the diameter, 2 Planck length, which matches this side length. And we make a circle with it. Well, the fine structure constant is in fact the ratio or the factor that needs to be applied to this circumference to always have a ratio that matches harmonic 144 over 360 degrees. So again, this is harmonic 144 that comes back again, right? The keys to the universe, and that represents the speed of light harmonic. 144 nautical miles per geometric second is the speed of light harmonic. So this is the maximum distance that the speed of light, that the light can travel around a circle, right? This is something that we need to follow. The universe is based on that. And the fine structure constant is the factor that we need to apply to the circumference of that circle to match that ratio. So this is, for me, the solution, the fine structure constants, which had remained a mystery for in physics remains a mystery. So I will show a bit more slides in a second. And that calculation gives us an accuracy of 99.97%. So essentially, with the information that this extraterrestrial craft shared or gifted us, I was able to derive the solution to the phi structure constant using this mechanism, if you will, of creation. Now, you may recall this video from Linda, a good friend of mine, these V-shaped sightings that was encoded, again, these harmonics of creation, 144, 432, and golden ratio. Well, I discovered, and we see it here, right? So I'm going to play the video one more time. It's just 30 seconds. But if you recall, this craft was encoding by the angle of this V-shaped formation was exactly an angle of 144 degrees. The V-shape, expands and contract again, and that ratio between the expanded or stretched shape versus the shrunk configuration was giving us the golden ratio proportion. And we see also these 5 craft creates a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere in the middle, which represents harmonic 142, which matched the formula that I had developed 2 years ago, right? Which is the formula of the speed of light, actually. I discovered that recently. So what I want to show here is that in the video, I'm going to play it in a second, right? We see that the V-shape has an angle of 144 degrees, as I show here. But what happened next in the video, these craft do a 360 degrees circle, right? And we'll see it, they rotate like a 360 degrees. And to me, was a representation of the fine structure constant, because we have the V-shaped angle here. And if you recall the circle I talked about minutes ago, which has 360 degrees. So the craft are essentially making like a show in front of us of this angle of 144 followed by this 360 degrees. By the way, you're muted, Sarah. I don't know if you're talking. I just want to make sure you know you're muted. Okay, so let me play the video here. Let's see, we see the V-shape formation is going to take place now, and then the craft are going to do a 360 degrees. Here we go. So they're doing it now. And then take the shape of the tetrahedron. In slow motion now, zoomed in. And then they're going to rotate now. Okay, let's go back to the slide. Oops.
Wait, so this means that you could probably go through a wormhole if you had, the right technology into like a different realm, basically, most likely in these.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, so all this mathematics and these clues that they give us is giving us the foundation of a new way to look at things, a new physics, right? And I'm using the fine structure constant because it is still unknown in our current physics where that is coming from. And as I'm showing here, it's been encoded clearly by these intelligences, and they're giving us the answer on the mechanism of it. And I have more slides actually here. I'm going to go to the next step here because it's going to show it in more detail. What I want to show here on that last part of the presentation is that how the location of the Giza pyramids actually accurately encodes the energy and mechanism of universal creation, very accurately. So we see here again the Great Pyramid, right? And this is the prime meridian, longitude 0, and the equator at the bottom. I'm going to show that all these distances encodes the mechanism of creation. So I came up with this mechanism several months ago. It was for me, it worked mathematically. It made sense. But now, later on, just literally a few weeks ago, I found that all the key numbers that I was involved in this mechanism are actually encoded in this distance. And I'm going to show it in more detail here. So this is the different step in the mechanism of creation. I'm going to go through that in detail. So the first step is what I call the primordial fractalization. And the primordial fractalization is, if we look on the left side here, is the division of the source creation, the division of the unity, right, represented by the number 1. And as we showed in a previous interview, the universal principle of division, the most efficient principle of division that exists in the universe is the golden ratio. Okay, so that golden ratio, I called it A, is equivalent to 1.618, is the ratio, 1.618 to 1, is actually exactly the distance between the prime meridian and the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is the distance A we see here at a very high degree of accuracy, 1617.3 nautical miles. And again, I want to emphasize here that we expect creation to be simple and elegant. And as we'll see here, this is exactly what's happening. So the next phase of that universal creation is, once we have that energy, right, that division, 1 over the golden ratio, the number that matches that, it's 618. I amplified it to make it more visual for the audience here. So but essentially, the harmonic number we get out of this division of the unity by the golden ratio is 618. So the next phase of creation will be essentially to integrate that energy in the simplest 3-dimensional structure that exists in the universe. And what is the simplest 3-dimensional structure that exists in the universe? It is the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron is really the foundation, the simplest geometry you can find in the universe in terms of simplicity. And so that is the next phase of that mechanism. So we end up essentially with a tetrahedron that has this energy, as I said, 618, but within the tetrahedron, there's a sphere. We called it in mathematics an inscribed sphere, or no, insphere. So if we mathematically do the calculation and distribute that 618 between the volume of the sphere and what's around the sphere, amazingly, we get harmonic 432. That is the volume around the sphere. And what's in the middle is 186.8, or harmonic 1868. Okay. Well, look at this. If we take that number here, that volume energy inside the sphere, I call it distance B, 1868. This matches exactly the distance between the prime meridian at the equator and the Great Pyramid of Giza, 1867.84. At a very, very high degree of accuracy. So this number is encoded there, right? It's giving us the clue. They say, hey, pay attention to this, right? This is part of the mechanism of creation from the Big Bang, if you want to, some would call it the Big Bang or that universal creation. Now, let's go to the next phase. Interestingly, if we take that energy of that insphere, and if you recall, this insphere was also in the sighting, right, from Linda, right, on the right side, we had that tetrahedron with the sphere inside, right? They were giving us that answer as well. The right side, this is the tetrahedron with the inscribed sphere. We go back here. So if we take that energy and we feed that energy into the Schwarzschild metric, as I said, that equation gives us the diameter of the corresponding black hole, right? So we enter that energy into that equation. We get a mini black hole diameter exactly matching harmonic 144. And I believe this is our connection to source creation, right? This is like the umbilical cord to source. Everything in the universe has this connection to a singularity, to the source. Now, let's go to the next step. Nassim Haramein has done amazing work. I'm a big fan of his work, and he demonstrated that the two-dimensional flower of life that we see here, expressed in a two-dimensional figure, is actually the product of three-dimensional 64 tetrahedron grid. Essentially, taking 64 tetrahedron in this configuration, if we share the light from the top of this, on top of the 64 tetrahedron, the shadow or the image that will appear at the bottom will be the flower of life, right? So Nassim has done tremendous work on this. So now if I use the mechanism of creation that I'm proposing here, if we take the 618 energy, which emerges from, again, the division of the 1 over the golden ratio, and we take 64 of these tetrahedron to create the 64 tetrahedron grid, the energy equivalent that we will get will be 1 over 2,528. This is the energy of the 64 tetrahedron grid. Amazingly, this corresponds to the distance c. If you look the distance between the coordinate of origin at the corner of the prime meridian and the equator and the Great Pyramid of Giza is exactly 2,528.7624 nautical miles. This matches exactly that. So you're muted, Sarah. I just wanted to, if you wanted to talk.
This is incredible.
So,
oh my God.
So
Keep
this
going.
is so precise. This is so precise that just this cannot be an accident. And this was very profound to me because this was confirming or validating the creation mechanism that I had hypothesized, made a hypothesis of many months ago. But now I realize this is all encoded. These energies of these various steps of the mechanism are encoded in the distance leading up to the pyramid. And finally, there's one more distance here that we see on the map, the distance D. If we look at the map, between the equator at the longitude of the Great Pyramid to the Great Pyramid, we have a distance of 1,798.76 nautical miles. Okay. Now, if we take that distance and we ratio that over the speed of light harmonic expressed in nautical miles per geometric second, we end up with a number that matched 12.5321, which is close or matches 4 pi. And 4 pi is very special. It's used everywhere in our current physics. But I discovered that if we create a sphere of energy with a surface area equivalent to 4 pi, and we insert that sphere into a dodecahedron, and Plato always told us that the universe was a dodecahedron. If we insert that sphere in the dodecahedron, the volume of the dodecahedron will match exactly the volume of our universe, which is best estimated volume of our universe. We get 5.55, the theoretical is 5.61, we have 99% match. So that distance energy D, 1798, encodes the creation of our universe. So what we end up essentially, to summarize here, is that these sides, or all the distances between the current equator and prime meridian leading up to the Great Pyramid of Giza, encodes the 64 tetrahedron grid, which is essentially the foundation of the flower of life, from which all geometrical form emerges in the universe, can be recreated based on that. We end up with this basic tetrahedron, as we saw, which is the foundation of everything in a three-dimensional world. And that sphere inside gives us a black hole diameter equivalent to harmonic 144, which again, I believe is our connection to source directly. We have the golden ratio encoded here, and then we have actually the creation of the whole universe, which is based on that. And the Planck length, I didn't describe this one, but gives us also the Planck length, which is the fundamental units of energy in quantum physics.
So, I'm sorry. So essentially, it's like the formula to source, I guess. Essentially, like it is, it is how you would explain mathematically what the source particle is, or how do you explain that?
Yeah, so this mechanism, to me, if I want to put it in simple word, is really how source, if we look at this one, the division of the one of source creation over the golden ratio, and all that follows, the integration of that energy within the tetrahedron, is how creation emerged, how everything that exists in the universe emerged from. Because that mechanism, I'm not showing there's a second phase to this mechanism, really, that when we scale it up by a golden ratio, we end up with the creation of the material world, the creation of matter, like the proton and neutron, the subatomic particle emerges naturally from this mechanism. I'm not covering it here because I don't want to go too much in mathematics, but what we see here was like the first phase of the division of the source creation, that energy from source, from which everything emerges. And very clearly, that mechanism of creation and the energies that are associated to it are exactly encoded in the location of the Great Pyramid against the equator in the prime meridian at a very, very high degree of accuracy. We're looking at 99.999% plus, accuracy in every case. So this is not an accident. So this is encoded there.
So if they came from the future to, share some of this information, then they must know that this information will be used maybe to contact them, or what do you think it would be used
Well, I
for,
think,
aside for free energy?
yes, I think that this information is encoded because these are the keys to freeing humanity from our current limitations and dependencies. Because once we turn this knowledge into technology, then we have the power of, like, for example, extracting free energy from the earth, right? Just like Tesla was attempting to do. We have the power of creating anti-gravity, and we have that, plenty of proof of that through the ancient sacred site, which is moving these massive stones, this megalithic structure that we cannot explain how they did it, including the Great Pyramid, the Giza pyramids, for instance. So once we understand this knowledge and convert that into technology, then I truly believe this will transform mankind and humanity, and we will be essentially having the same technology that these ancient civilizations had, and allow us to travel to the stars and reconnect with our, cosmic family, right? Because we'll have access to all this and creating healing technologies to heal cancer and things like that. So this is really the power of it. So I want to end this presentation with a short video. So you may recall this golden ratio triangular craft that appeared to me on several occasions, which again, this triangle was also containing these harmonics of creation, 144, golden ratio, harmonic 432. And so so what I did here, actually, what I always like to do is to broadcast my homework back to the universe. So I take that slide that I showed earlier that summarizes all these findings, and I broadcasted it with my radio station. I have a very powerful radio station capable of deploying 250,000 watts of radiated power. So on that given night, just a few days ago, actually, on that given night, could see Vega, the star Vega, very nicely. So I directed the antennas towards Vega and broadcasted the slide, which I had encoded, in an audio message. So what we're going to see here is the video of that transmission. You're going to hear the audio message, which kind of code, right, which encodes this slide very accurately. And that's what I want to show here, show what happened. It's powering up right now. We see the golden ratio triangle shape.
They were giving you
And
information.
yes, and let me bring back the slide. So I think that was the last slide.
It's
That ends my
incredible.
presentation.
This is incredible. I can't believe the work that you're doing. And they were purposely giving you information. So you broadcasted to them and then they showed you that shape for
Yes,
you.
yes. It was for me also a way that they were acknowledging the slide, right, the information contained in it, and they recreated that golden ratio triangular craft shape that they've manifested before in other ways, which contains all this because this shape, this triangle, contains all these harmonics, right? 144, 432 golden ratio, which represents source, right? Is the expression of source creation in our physical reality, right? They express itself with these harmonics. So a lot of fun, and as I said, the works keeps evolving. I mean, almost every week, every day, there's something new coming up. So I can barely keep up with it.
Well, it's incredible all the findings that you're, getting. And what are your main goals that you want to do with all of this? Like, what are you really hoping for?
Well, to me, it's really, as I see it, one of my role is to decode this information and translate it in a way that can be understood. That can be understood by the public and share the information. I mean, I'm doing this. I'm not making any money of this stuff. It's purely a passion of mine, right? And it's to essentially help us remember what we once knew, these ancient civilizations knew, and these non-human intelligences or have been trying to communicate it to us all along. I mean, the signs can then be more obvious, right? I mean, these sites are right in our face all around the world, and we don't know how they can have been built that way with these massive stones and the location. But when we look at the information that is encoded in these sites, all these manifestations, I saw with Linda's video, which is extraordinary, and I'm very thankful to her to share that video. In my own sightings, if you recall, I mean, it's all the same thing. It's all giving us the keys to the universe. It's telling us how things are working, right, in the universe. And the true science, the true physics is that. Clearly, our current science is highly flawed. People may know or may not know, but currently our science, they had to make up, right, they had to create what they call dark matter or dark energy, because our current science is unable to explain 98% of our universe. If you look at the gravity, all the gravitational force in the universe and the speed of things, the current physics cannot explain that. They needed to create this invisible force, this invisible dark matter and dark energy to make things work, right? It's because our current science is missing 98% of the universe. It's not working. It's just not working, right? So we know that, and what they do in science is try to come up with all kind of tweaking of the data and create new ways to go around and try to explain it. It just does not work. And what we see here is that this, what we show today in the knowledge that these civilizations have been communicating to us all along, contains that true science on how really the universe works. And once we can decode that information and apply it in our physical reality and create technology based on that, we're going to be living in a different universe and different world, really. I truly believe it will have the ability to give us free energy and everything we need to have abundance on this planet. And that's what we should have, and that's how powerful that is. And they are communicating to us this information, and it's for us to open our eyes to it, right, and decode it.
It's incredible. Thank you so much. How do people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you and
Yes, well, I do have a YouTube channel called Human Initiated Contact. I post all of my material on this site, so you can see all these videos and presentations and interviews. I'm going to post that interviews also on that channel. And I have a Facebook page, also just my regular name, for those who want to connect with me, send a friendship. These are pretty much the two platforms I use to communicate the information.
your website?
I don't have a website yet, so I just have a YouTube channel.
Okay. All right. I'll post it. I'll put it in the comments or in the description so people can
That sounds,
reach out to you.
that sounds
Oh
great.
my gosh. This has been so mind blowing. I'm so thankful for what you're doing. This is incredible, Jimmy. Thank you so very, very much. There's a few questions though. Can I just ask a few
Sure.
questions?
Yeah,
Someone
absolutely.
wants to know if this proves that we live in some sort of a matrix. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my interpretation of that is that we clearly live in a holographic universe, right? Everything is connected to a singularity. And that's why this notion of singularity, we talk about black hole, but at the center of a black hole, there's a singularity. And that singularity, as I mentioned in one of the first slides, allows us to connect to any point in time, space, any dimension, any density through this singularity wormhole. And that's why this physics is embedded in this location of these ancient sacred sites. We saw it very precisely. I mean, it's mathematical, right? And so we live in this holographic universe, which is like a dot, right? It could be represented that everything is folded within itself, within that singularity, which is the connection to source as well, right? This is that number one that represents everything that is that number one, that source creation. So when we live in a matrix, yeah, we could say that in the sense that we live in a holographic universe. Everything is connected to everything. That's why when we say that we're all one, right? Well, yeah, we're all part of the same thing. It's all connected. Everything can interact with everything else in that space or that hologram instantly, regardless of space-time, regardless of the dimension. We all can connect, and some people have learned to do that through meditation and connect through consciousness, right? And that's really the right way to do it.
Amazing. Thank you so very, very much. Appreciate it. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end?
Well, I want to thank you again for the opportunity. I know you're very busy with doing all kind of trips also, and you go to Giza. I have not gone to Giza yet. That's one of my goals at some point.
Why don't you come with me?
Yeah, well, yeah, I need to find the time for it at some point. We'll make it work. And I'm grateful for the work you're doing, Sarah, as well. You share information with the world that is very important. I mean, we all have a little part of it, little role in this great theater, in this great play, and I'm very thankful for the information you're sharing. Keep doing the good work you're doing, Sarah, and we'll be in touch, and there's going to be more coming.
I can't wait. Let me know what else you find out. Thank you.
For sure. We'll do that for sure. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.